Hello everybody, my name is Philip Muscott and I'm currently the Director of Curriculum at CIA First International School in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Firstly, I'd like to say a huge thank you to the organisers for giving me this opportunity to share some of my research. So, Benna and Julio have already done a great job of explaining what the habits of mind are, what their purpose and importance is, and also laying some of the foundations of the need to change educational frameworks and embed these cognitive dispositions. So it is clear that education has to change, moving away from content coverage and to allowing students to develop cognitive and social emotional skills, which will lead to lifelong and self-directed learning. The main drivers of this are the fact that the access to information has just exploded with the use of the internet. So if students need to access knowledge, then they can in essence Google it. And also the advances in artificial intelligence and robotics, meaning that many of the jobs that currently exist will be taken over, and to a large degree that we are preparing students for an unknown future. So whilst we are clear that education needs to change and why it needs to change, and we've got a pretty good idea of what the cognitive dispositions are that students need, what is unclear is what that actually looks like within the curriculum. So the purpose of the study was to ascertain whether there is actually a correlation between students' display of the habits of mind within a unit and their achievement in the culminating performance task. In that sense, to determine the predictive power of the performance in the habits of mind as compared to more traditional approaches and assessments in declarative and procedural and also conceptual understandings. All leading really to the crux of the problem, which is it time well spent for educators to intentionally embed the habits of mind in curriculum planning and intentionally teach and assess them? Which led to the research question: to what extent does student performance in habits of mind assessment account for variance in performance task achievement? The critical literature review really uncovered that there is an abundance of theoretical research revolving around the habits in terms of cognitive learning theories, in terms of constructivism and social learning, and brain and neurological research. In addition, the studies that had gone before really focused on perception of stakeholders, and the research shows that there's certainly a perception that embedding the habits of mind yields positive results in terms of student learning. There was some empirical evidence focused on metacognition in terms of problem solving within mathematics. However, there was a notable gap in the literature that looked at students' display across the 16 habits of mind and their achievement in authentic performance tasks. So to give a little bit of context for the study, as I mentioned, the school is in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. School has a curriculum framework which includes academic standards from the United States. All curriculum planning is done through the Understanding by Design framework, and all units are infused with the 16 Habits of Mind. There are around 3,500 students at the school, 90% of whom are Cambodian, but also span across 22 different nationalities, and they are largely English language learners. We also have a diverse teaching faculty which spans across 28 different nationalities. Sample size was quite high. We actually looked at social studies within the middle school, where there were 354 students across 19 classes, and English language arts in the high school, which included 246 students across 18 classes. To bring this to life a little bit, here are a couple of shots of the campus. And here are some of our students upon graduation, clearly demonstrating the habit of mind, responding with wonderment and awe as they consider their life in the future and all the challenges that life will throw at them. So now we get into the conceptual framework and the methodology. So the study utilized a quantitative approach using multiple linear regression as the methodology. It included the conceptual framework, included 3 independent variables and 1 dependent variable. So the 3 independent variables were knowledge and skills assessments, essential questions, discussions assessments, and habits of mind, journal assessments, with the ultimate dependent variable being performance task achievement. So to give a little bit more detail there in terms of the habits of mind, for each unit, 2 or 3 habits of mind were identified as being most beneficial for success within the unit. And these were modelled, and also the students given opportunity to practice them and give feedback throughout the duration of the unit. The students throughout the whole unit participate in essential questions discussions, and again 2 or 3 essential questions discussions revolving around big ideas within the unit, where they're assessed upon their collaboration and their critical thinking skills and their leadership skills within those discussions, and also the more traditional assessment of the declarative and the procedural via knowledge and skills assessments. Here is one example of a performance task. We actually had 7 performance tasks that were used in the study across the unit. All of these performance tasks were designed using the GRASPS template. So students are given a goal, role, audience, situation, product, and specification. In this particular example, which is a middle school social studies assessment, the students are assigned the roles of reporters and journalists, where they're looking at different claims to land within the Amazon region and some of the conflicts revolving around that. And their task was twofold, to create a news report regarding one of the particular interest groups, to look at the claim from their perspective, and also to write a magazine report which looked at all of the 6 interest groups and balance the pros and cons of their claims, and recommending a solution to the conflict. Here is an example of the Habits of Mind journal. This particular one is for persisting, but similar ones were used for all of the other 15, depending on which habits were chosen for the unit. And as you can see, throughout the unit, the students are asked to give evidence statements of where they feel they successfully applied the habit of mind to learning activities and problem-solving tasks, and what the benefits were of application, but also any missed opportunities and positive consequences of failing to apply the particular habit. In addition, the students self-reflected, self-assessed, and also set goals for improvement. As you can see, the students were assessed on 3 different criteria, which was their observable classroom behaviour, the evidence provided via the statements, and also the extent to which that they had self-reflected and set goals. So the methodology, it was a quantitative study using multiple linear regression for the statistical analysis. And whilst there's not time to go into it here, it should be enough to explain that first the R-square was determined to show what the predictive power of the overall model was, i.e. What percentage of the variance could be explained by the model, and then beta weights were attached to then isolate the independent variables to see the extent to which any change in them correlated or accounted for any variance in the dependent variable if all of the other variables remain constant. So what did we learn? Okay, so this is the model summary for the middle school social studies. And the important figure here is the R-square. So this shows us that 49.2% of the variance in the dependent variable could be explained by variance in the independent variables. So that's a pretty powerful model. The important figures here are the significance, which are on the right hand side and all very, very close to 0, which shows that it's highly unlikely that any of this variance was by chance. And then it is the B figure there that then shows us the predictive power of each of those dependent variables. So we can see out of the 3 independent variables there that habits of mind actually came out with the highest correlation, i.e. the most predictive power. So what this means is that actually for 1% change in habits of mind journal assessment, there would be a 0.36% change in performance task achievement. Here is the model summary for the high school English language arts. Not quite so powerful, but moderately powerful. So this tells us that 29% of the variance could be explained by the model. Again, these are all significant, which is important. We can see here slightly different results in this particular example. We see that knowledge and skills actually came up with the highest predictive power, followed by the habits of mind, and then essential questions. So in this case, we'll see that a 1% change in habits of mind achievement yielded a 0.17% change in performance task achievement. Okay, leading us to discuss our findings. So we found that there is a significant correlation between performance in habits of mind assessment and performance task achievement. So if we do value our students' ability to transfer their learning to solve real-world problems, it is worth time for educators to intentionally plan, teach, and assess the habits of mind. What we also found out was related to alignment. So we actually had a better alignment in our middle school social studies between the other assessments, the stage 1 goals and the stage 2 assessments. So for the high school English language arts, actually there was a higher correlation between the knowledge and skills. And when we actually looked at some of the performance tasks, they were perhaps a little bit more skills based than problem solving, and therefore it makes logical sense that the knowledge and skills assessments had slightly more predictive power than the habits of mind. So in what ways does this learning matter to me and my work in the organization? Well, it was exceptionally validating in terms of integrating the habits of mind into the UBD framework and the way that we have used HOM assessments as well embedded within our work. So where did this lead us in terms of action or impact? Well, we looked at the Habits of Mind journals in terms of their use as an assessment instrument. And whilst we found, that they had good utility, we wanted to go deeper, and we have been now implementing the 5 dimensions of growth. We are doing more focused habits of mind activities and assessments to really try and capture the in the moment, and developing a set of habits of mind competency standards, which really look at what those specific habits of mind look like in the context of particular units. In broad terms, the study influenced thinking in the organization because it has made our faculty think about education in a much more scientific sense. There has been more quantitative research done within the school looking at the predictive power of additional independent variables, and notably the 7 elements of personalized learning have been looked at within the existing conceptual framework that we designed for this study. And also school-wide, a belief that although we're working in an extremely complex field here with an enormous number of variables, that a belief that we can use research within the organization to solve problems, and that we can ultimately understand phenomena without schooling if we develop and refine effective conceptual frameworks, and we seek to understand the relationship between variables. Thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to answering any questions that you may have.